Less than 24 hours away from the gold medal game. I'm John Butchergross in sunny Florida. That's Frank Saravalli in Italy as a impending snowstorm about to hit the Northeast this weekend. Good stay inside and watch TV weather as long as the power isn't out. So we certainly hope everyone is safe and has their power on so they can watch the game. I'm an early riser anyway, Frank, so 8 a.m. Eastern time doesn't bother me any.
What is your plan? How are you going to watch it? Are you going to cook breakfast before, during, after? What's your game plan?
Yeah, I like that. Now that you just said that, I'm an early riser anyway, 5:30, 6 a.m. So I'll be up. So maybe I might give myself a little more time, maybe get a little workout in a little garage gym. And then, yeah, maybe I'll do breakfast sandwiches first intermission, French toast second intermission, something like that. So a light breakfast before the game starts. Got to root for your team on an empty stomach, banana, little yogurt. And then I'll go breakfast sandwiches first intermission, French toast second intermission.
Man, I got to tell you, I can't even think about what the feeling is going to be like tomorrow. It's already getting pretty tense here in Milan. There's been all sorts of different stuff happening here. There's been some protests in the city center. There has been some rumblings that President Donald Trump might be flying to Milan to attend this game. I think the preparations have been put into place in case he decides to come. It's getting a little late now. But I think at this point, the indication that I have from team and league sources is that that's unlikely to happen. But that would just add another layer and backdrop to this clash that, man, we've been dreaming and drooling about since really 2010 in Vancouver. And the fact that it's here now, just a few hours away. I was talking to a bunch of the U.S. players after practice today. Like, how do you manage these next 20 hours and all the emotions that come with it, knowing the magnitude of this event and how this will be inscribed in hockey history for a really long time?
And of course, we got a taste of it a year ago at the Four Nations, and that was outstanding stuff. We all enjoyed it. The ratings were just absolutely record-shattering for games in February in NHL buildings like we've never seen before. So now we'll see what happens tomorrow, 8:10 a.m. Eastern Time, 8765, right across the country. And I guess we begin with the biggest storyline, Frank. It's what's at stake. What reputations are on the line? What does it mean if your team wins or doesn't win? I guess that's the opening salvo.
Yeah, I think maybe the easiest way to frame this for me is that the U.S. is trying to poke a pin or at least diminish slightly what really is Canada's national identity. Hockey is that. This is their sport. This is their game. They invented it. Look at the track record for success. They've been the 800-pound gorilla for the last, 4 decades or so, maybe longer. The Soviets had their run for sure. But when you look back on every best-on-best tournament, for the most part, there's a few rare exceptions, the 98 and 2006 Olympics. They're not just a combatant. They're the heavyweight, and they've dominated at every turn. And the U.S., it's so different because the U.S. national identity doesn't come from hockey. It's a part of the landscape, and some non-hardcores, just general sports fans would say that it's a niche and it's just there. And so when you try to put together a team that attacks or goes after Canada, you're trying to win over something that helps dominate the conversation and youth sports and everything else that comes with it. So I'm not overstating it when I say that this Olympics and hockey's place in it for Canada, it means more because this is what they base so much of their life around in the winter. And to be able to, sort of pull even with Canada is something that the U.S. has been trying to do for a long, long time and has failed to succeed.
Right. And it's obviously, and I've used this analogy before, this comparison before, is that, when I was born, there were 4 teams in the U.S. Of course, there are only 2 teams in Canada as well. So that shows you in those pockets of Detroit and Chicago and Boston, not so much New York City, as it turns out historically. But those hockey is rich and it means a lot. It's in the fabric of society. It has for a long, long time. The other pockets are obviously growing. We're up to over 50 years in Pittsburgh. We're up to over 50 years in Philadelphia. So now granddads are taking their grandsons to games. Now they're having that bond, and that's only going to help hockey exponentially get more popular and more becoming away from a niche sport. But certainly compared to football and everything in college football, yeah, it's down on the rung. But I think lately, Frank, if you look at recent history, the women's USA program is now in a great shape, better than Canada. The World Junior, USA won back to back before this past year, so pretty strong. NCAA hockey has never been stronger. That'll help the popularity of hockey. I'm sure there's kids growing up around Penn State now who will play hockey who didn't just 15 years ago, because Penn State didn't even have hockey. Now you get these stars coming in, Gavin McKenna, and that will have reverberation. So I guess if you're the U.S., you kind of think of, okay, yes, those resumes you showed are true, but we're now looking forward. And I love this quote from Mike Sullivan. And I thought it was really, I like when I get a quote that really makes you think. And he said, when you think about over the last 100 plus years, there have been 2 gold medals won by American hockey players. 1960, there were 16 players on the roster, 2 goalies, 4 defensemen, 10 forwards. 1980, there were 20 players on the roster. So he said, when you think about it in those terms, there's 36 American-born hockey players, just 36 that have gold medals. You want to be a part of that club. That tells you, wow, this is a big deal. And if that inspires you as opposed to scares you or makes you tense, which we know it does some athletes, I thought that was a really interesting way, Frank, to look at it. And like I said, to continue to look towards the future for American hockey, USA hockey specifically.
Okay, so there's 2 parts of that, because I was standing there today when Mike Sullivan said it,
Right.
and you're right. It kind of
Yep.
grabbed me, like only 36 in the last 100 years. That's kind of an amazing number, but it speaks to the futility that the U.S. has had on this stage. For Canada, that number is a couple hundred players that have won gold medals or have been in that club. And so the U.S. hasn't been close. And the other part that I would add to that is just that as they work toward this, that's a lot of baggage for players to wear. And I was talking to Zach Werenski about that after today with their skate. And they were so happy to just get on the ice, to spend a little time getting a sweat in. That's one less hour you have to sit in your hotel room or in the village and think. And he said, as much as this game means so much for USA hockey and the US, which it does, he goes, we weren't part of those teams that fell short. That isn't our group. That isn't our team. And it was almost his way of saying not ours to wear. And I thought that was pretty profound as well, to think that, for a million different reasons why they have, this group hasn't, other than 4 Nations face off. And it came down to one shot in overtime, and the best player in the world scored, and they skated off with the medal. And so the U.S. can play somewhat free in the sense that, hey, this burden that's hanging over you, just go enjoy the moment, because there's so few of you that have had this type of opportunity.
For sure. And you're right. Even though it hasn't been, and we've said this on the show, the last couple of weeks, that, yeah, that 1980 was cool. And it's kind of a singular, it stands on its own story. But then when you step back and say, well, that's the last time we won a gold medal. And that's a long time ago. But it doesn't feel like a Chicago Cub, Boston Red Sox, waiting forever, generations waiting forever to win the next one. And I think obviously that's because interspersed here with these Olympic years are Stanley Cup trophies being won, and NHL regular season games, and hundreds of games, and national championships won by certain players. So there's a lot of other things going on. It's not just, where obviously baseball, if you're a Red Sox fan, a Cubs fan, that's the number one, the number one level in baseball. But for hockey, there's so many other things. It doesn't feel like there's that kind of pressure to me, Frank, like a Chicago Cub player or a Boston Red Sox player had to deal with ending their curses, whatever they were. It doesn't seem like this even has a curse, right? There was a curse of the Billy Goat, the curse of the Bambino. It doesn't seem like there's USA hockey curse tied to this. It's just Canada has better players. They have more better players than we have in the past, although that is starting to shrink. We see it now with these two rosters this year. The gap is obviously closed. The next 50 years will be different. There'll be numerous USA gold medals won in the next 50 years.
But it's going to take one group from the US to
Yep.
finally punch through, because until you do it, you haven't. And no one really cares that you finished second in a 4-team tournament last year. And the last time we played best on best in 2016, they finished 7th. And the 2014 Olympics, they didn't medal. The 2010 Olympics, of course, heartbreak in Vancouver. So as you work through this list and then you compare it to Canada side by each, and you go, this isn't even a competition. I mean, Canada first, US second, fourth, seventh, whatever it might be.
Mm-hmm.
The next 50 years, someone's going to need to be that group. Who's going to be the 1996 World Cup of Hockey group that set the table for these players? Who's going to be, for those 96 players, it was the 1980 players. That standard needs to come from somewhere, because really what we're talking about, and with that national identity that I spoke of with Canada, is Canada's overall slipping grip on the game that they view as theirs. And this is the best example of that. This is since the last time we played best on best in the Olympics in 2014.
Wow. That's a great graphic.
In time, 52% of the NHL players were Canadian. Now it's down to 42, and the number of US players is rising slowly, and the number of other international players, and it's not just Sweden and Finland, they're coming from Switzerland and Germany and all these other places. That's changing. Maybe another 12 years from now, it's going to be in the mid 30s. And so as that evolves, you're right, there are going to be more opportunities for the US to win. But at the same time, that means that there's going to be more opportunities for Finland and Sweden and all these other places to punch through and be the team that goes on a surprise run. But for here and now, the US has arrived at this stage as a true coin flip. In the best sense of the word, they've got every bit good of a chance as Canada does to win this gold medal on Sunday. And there are not going to be very many better opportunities than this one. Both teams arriving with perfect 5-0 records. They've allowed the identical goals against in their 5 games. Canada's been slightly better on giving up fewer shots. But other than that, there's not as many questions about will Sidney Crosby play or will he not, or their injuries, or how come Canada's gotten themselves into some sticky situations trailing in the quarterfinals and semifinals. Like, it's as fascinating a matchup as you could possibly have.
It is fun. And that's the other thing about this Olympic Games and this tournament, is that we can treat these games almost like football games where there's buildup. Right, there's like a build-up to this game, and we can really break it down. We're doing an hour show right now on a Saturday talking about it. That didn't happen 10 years ago either, Frank, where Streamcasts were around to talk about it and build it up. That's great for the sport, right? There's more of this. We lacked afternoon radio chatter when radio was the only way people talked about sports before podcasts got going. They never talked about hockey in the afternoon. They never talked about hockey at all. Now we have it on Twitter. People can watch our show on Twitter. They can obviously download the Victory Plus app. They can watch it whenever they want. It's the best time to be a hockey fan. So we're building up these moments, I think, which are great for the game, and I think will help the game. It'll help the U.S. because, again, the critical mass, that's the population we have in this country, our diversity of all around the country, and people constantly, obviously, immigrating to our country who love it. The U.S. should be in a position, and that's what frustrated USA Hockey 10, 15 years ago. Why is Sweden producing all these first-round picks? Why are they kicking our butt internationally? What's wrong? We have too many people. So they basically copied their model, right? Small area practices, more practices than games. And here they are. Their fruits are starting to be realized now, Frank, with, like I mentioned, women's gold, the World Championship last year, the back-to-back World Juniors. It's like players are starting to get that patriotism, and the roster they got for Team USA at the World Championships last year, that was pretty good. They struggled to get guys to go over and play in that tournament in the past, right? That was difficult. And now it's like, it's kind of a rebirth. I love your analogy of the 96 World Cup team. You're right. That was just a watershed moment, and that really produced more popularity in the game. And, ESPN was back in the game then, TV wise, and things were really cooking. So who's going to be Bill Guerin, who's now the GM? Who's going to be Keith Kachuk? Well, maybe his two sons. Who's going to be Brett Hall? Hello, Austin Matthews. We could use 2 goals tomorrow morning. So, yeah, I love that 96 comparison. I think that would be cool. I know it's the World Cup and it's the Olympic coverage, so maybe they won't do that analogy tomorrow morning in the preview or something. But I think that would be a good one to do, to go back to that year and what it did and how those guys got that done.
Well, so a couple things to insert some comparisons here. Mike Sullivan mentioned, and it stopped me in my tracks, that this is the closest team he's ever been around. And I'm going,
Wow.
Mike Sullivan coached back-to-back Stanley Cup winning teams for the Pittsburgh Penguins. And I said today, following up on his quote from last night, I said, why is that? And he said, because the U.S. with the National Development Program puts these kids together at 16 and 17 years old, they've now gone through step by step in this process, playing together as teenagers, winning World Juniors, winning at the World Championship. And they're tight because of that bond of representing the U.S. Canada has always had that with their success at the World Juniors, and a very similar thing that we don't talk about. But the other thing is, you mentioned the buildup. This is Canada's Super Bowl. That's what this is on Sunday. It's not in the U.S. It will be a novelty for 20-some million people who watch it and aren't diehards. And to understand the magnitude and the difference of that culturally on either side of the border, to make Team Canada's national Olympic hockey team is like being a Super Bowl winner wherever your town is. Like Tom Wilson in his rink in North Toronto will have a giant banner for the test of time that Team Canada players were produced here. It's just different. So it means more there. But the fact that the U.S. has, after all this time, it's 30 years since 96 World Cup of Hockey, and another 16 before that for 1980. And you add that up and you go, that's 46 years in between true Olympic glory. The U.S. has finally this chance to pull even that it hadn't had in a really long time. Before in 2010, they were just too soon. That team was a spark plug, but it wasn't the team. This is the team that's going toe-to-toe and was built to go toe-to-toe with Canada. And now here they are.
Here they are. And we should remind the folks, Frank, just, the overtime rules have kind of changed with each round, from preliminary to middle round, now to the final. And here is the final. There's no shootout, so we don't have to worry about a gold medal being awarded on a shootout.
Yeah, and it's different from the preliminary. It's also different from the semifinal round, which was 10 minutes of 3-on-3, which goes to a shootout. This is 20 minutes. It's a full intermission after regulation if it is tied. And by the way, 9 of the last best on best Olympic and competitions, their final game has been a 1-goal game. So a very good chance. And as a reminder, Four Nations Face-Off went to OT. So 20 minutes of 3-on-3, and you keep playing those sessions until someone wins. I don't think we're going to need it, meaning it typically doesn't make it 20 minutes at 3-on-3.
Right.
But
right.
That's the format.
Too many chances.
Sunday.
Absolutely. And Sidney Crosby's golden goal in Vancouver was a 4-on-4 overtime goal. And this year, if it does go to overtime, it'll be a 3-on-3 overtime goal, no matter what. And it will be interesting to see how long it goes on. And, I don't know sure what the average time is on the overtimes we had in this Olympics. But there's been talk, obviously NHL. Do we go to 10 minutes or 7 minutes just to kind of get a winning goal that way instead of going to the shootout? And I don't know, this is not quite enough data, but I'm sure the NHL, as they look at it, and say maybe we can go just a couple extra minutes, because it seems like these things will at least end in 7 or 6 or 8, whatever that number is. And
so statistically, the number is actually 9. We know that 96% is the expected goals rate in 9 minutes. By the way, the average of the overtimes games played so far in the Olympics is a hair over 4 minutes.
There you go. And I think that would likely, with all this skill and all that ice, that would likely be the case in the final as well. All right, Sidney Crosby, what's the latest?
I'd love to be able to give you an accurate description, but Canada closed their practice after Doug Armstrong said to start the tournament that Canada's practices would be open for the rest of it. And they did address the media afterwards. John Cooper saying that Sidney Crosby is trying to go. Macklin Celebrini said Crosby looked great. Again, we have to take their word for it because we don't see them. Some of my colleagues have pegged Sidney Crosby's chances at playing at 70%. That feels slightly high to me, but of course, he is a gamer and looking for any solution possible. I thought the most interesting wrinkle from John Cooper was him saying that if Sidney Crosby will not be effective, meaning can't be used in a regular shift, they do not plan to use him as the 13th forward, even as for an emotional support grocery stick on the bench. They want and know that in case there are other injuries to their forward group throughout the game, that they don't want to be shorthanded. And he said it. He mentioned Braden Point specifically, that sometimes these athletes themselves will have to make a very difficult decision. I'd say this is honestly a coin flip as to whether or not we see Sidney Crosby. I think it's much closer to that based on the intel that I've gotten. But man, what a story and what a moment it would be to see Sidney Crosby on the ice, given what has played out over the last handful of days.
Yeah, yeah. I just wonder, I'm sure that he can get bandaged and braced up pretty good. He can take a shot. If there's pain involved, they'll give him something to make it numb and be able to go. The adrenaline will be through the roof. But considering his age, considering he has won a gold medal before, he has a gold medal moment. Yeah, I think he'll definitely do the right thing to him as he goes out and tests this thing. He wants to be out there. I know in his heart, he knows he can help his team. He would be a good X factor if he could play 12 minutes, something like that. I think obviously taking a regular shift, a full 18, I find that hard to believe against a great American team. So I would think he wouldn't play, but it would be a great story and a great lift to his teammates if he does go out there for the warm up, Frank. That would be a moment in itself before the game if he hits the ice for the warmies.
Would it ever? And then the other part is, because he's been so successful in big moments, like one of the great clutch players, and you mentioned the golden goal. You see his 2 Olympic gold medals on the screen here, along with his career Olympic stats, 16 points in 17 career games. That I wonder if part of the U.S. is thinking maybe we need someone like Sidney Crosby to be out of the lineup to make Canada feel a little bit more gettable. I don't know what the psyche's involved in that. Mike Sullivan said we're just going to focus on our own team, and he would know Sidney Crosby about as well as anyone in terms of game planning against him. I don't know if you can, but that is a fascinating storyline that just adds this wrinkle to Sunday morning that we're all going to have to try and figure out.
Right. Yeah. The anticipation, the buildup, all of it. It is something, and we can't wait now. Less than 24 hours away, but I do believe as we focus on, the experience factor in this game. Obviously, Crosby brings that, and that's something why he would like to play, and why I'm sure John Cooper and Team Canada would like him to be able to be at least 70% or 87% for this game. It would matter. And between Cooper's people person skills and his self awareness and Crosby's humility and doing the right thing, they'll be able to figure out whether he doesn't play, whether he plays a certain amount. They'll figure what line he should be on. Will he be on the first power play? They'll be able to figure that out. They're smart people, and they're really really uber bright that way. But in the end, will this experience factor matter, or is this USA team? A lot of them in the prime of their lives with a very strong defensive core. So structurally, they're built the proper way to control pace, to keep the pace going, unlike Finland, who couldn't create, they were defending so much, then they couldn't create offense. This American team, Frank, whether they're down early or up early, they're kind of built to, in Mike Sullivan's words, as you talked about, dictate the terms.
They are, but what they're staring down is a team that's been here and done that. And they've done it
Yep.
at the Olympic level with Sidney Crosby and Drew Doughty. I mean, look at this chart here.
Yeah.
In the end, 20 Stanley Cups, 4 Olympic gold medals, and 5 Conn Smythe trophies as Stanley Cup playoff MVPs. Not just players on the team who get on the mug, MVPs, 5 of them.
Mm.
It's a bananas chart. And when I go through and I've analyzed this game and I've thought about it 1,400 ways from Sunday, one of the biggest reasons why I have a hard time picking against Canada is because of this. When push comes to shove, it's the team that doesn't get tight in the moment where you're looking for that last shot, that last opportunity. And Canada put that on display in the quarters and semis in this tournament, trailing in both of those games in the third period with under 10 minutes to play in both. And the first time they were a little shaky. The second time they looked like they were nails. And you look at this and then you compare them to the US. And the US group is so incredibly thin with experience. They might have won World Juniors and they might have won a World Championship, but they've got 4 total Stanley Cups compared to 20. And that, I believe that to be a real thing where you put these two side by side, that this matters in moments like these.
Right. And there's a reason why Brad Marchand has a couple of Stanley Cups. We saw what he did the other night on that tying goal. Like, that's a winning play to get near the crease. They know what to do. They know what their default roles are when things get tough. At least it doesn't guarantee a win. Obviously, Marchand has had a long career, only 2 cups, and only, I mean that just in terms of, you look at it just 2 out of 20 or 2 out of 18. But you bring it all the time. You bring those winning ways, and sometimes it won't obviously turn out into a victory. He's lost in the Stanley Cup Finals as well, but you do those things, and you just increase your chances. That's all you're trying to do, is increase your chances to win. Make winning plays. Canada they made a hit the post last against Finland, and we might be talking about a Finland USA final. That's how it's a matter of inches this game. But you're right. That does have to mean something. But I really do believe this Team USA is not spooked by that. I do believe they think they are the future. They are the here and now. And you mentioned their winning ways in USA hockey, going back to U18s, U17s. They won championships. They went all around the world and won championships. Austin Matthews and Jack Hughes, Quinn Hughes, and they've been around winning ways and winning situations. And they're ready for this. I do think they think they're the future, Frank. And I think they'll slowly add cups to that full screen right there and eventually close the tie. They can't control what happened these last 5-10 years.
I was just going to say, there's a difference between thinking I can do this and knowing I've done this. And that's
for sure
a pretty big distinction.
And even if they were to lose, I still think they'll still believe in themselves. They'll still believe that they're the team of the future, and that they'll go on to win cups and gold medals and world championships and whatever other tournament names we have going forward here every other year when the Olympics and the NHL starts to get more of these best on best. So we'll see. Like you said, it could be a continuation of a great run for USA hockey, going back to the World Junior, the World Championships last spring, the women just winning. So this would be big for USA hockey if they can get this done. And for Canada, it's like, all right, we're hanging on. It does seem like they're kind of hanging on to that mantle and that dominance you talked about. But hey, a win's a win, a gold medal's a gold medal, and that lasts for a lifetime. So as we move on to really on the ice, the experience factor, resume factor, that's kind of subjective. But in terms of what's happening during these games, what do they have on the ice? And in the end, I do believe the players are the difference, and the players will determine this in the here and now. What is more impressive, that Canada offense at the high end with Celebrini, McKinnon, McDavid, or the USA smothering defense that really comes from all 4 lines?
So I lean toward the U.S. defense in this circumstance, and I say that full well knowing that this Canadian firepower is very real, and when they've needed late game magic and goals, they've gotten them. But the thing is, the history of best on best finals is that they've all been very tight. The average total number of goals scored is 4.55 total.
Mm-hmm.
So there aren't many goals to come by. And when things do get tight, you have to rely on, your defense. And this U.S. defense, I think, has performed significantly better than Canada in this tournament and has put themselves in a position where they can, if they win, be considered among the very best Olympic group of defensemen from any country that's been assembled. And the exciting part, if you want to get ahead of yourself for the US, is that they're young and that they're not going anywhere and that they're all just breaking through. And these 8 guys or 7 guys could be together for 3 Olympics total if they wanted to be. So that said, it's hard to shake the notion, though, that Canada's offense, even though it feels or has the optics that it's gotten thin in different moments with Sidney Crosby out of the lineup, as you look at the lines and what they were when he was out, that top line, I mean, there's no other country on planet Earth that can put together a line of Macklin Celebrini, Connor McDavid, and then when push comes to shove in the third period, throw Nathan McKinnon up there for 3 of the top 4 scorers in the NHL and 3 Hart Trophy candidates. No one else can do that. And then it's not as if these other guys on the board are struggling. So it is a great test and another layer to this on ice chess match that they're different teams on different paths, but they also have vastly disparate strengths that make this matchup so intriguing.
It does. And what I think favors Canada in this particular instance is that it's a one-game situation. Like, the famous Herb Brooks line, one of many in his speech. And, they might beat us 9 out of 10 times, but not tonight. And in one game, they felt they were ready. And for Canada, maybe if this was the best of 7, Frank, I think Team USA would have be more comfortable. Over the long haul, we're going to win this series. They're not going to beat us 4 out of 7 times with our defense and our structure and our defensemen. But one game, obviously, there's multiple Hall of Famers on that Canadian forward group. They're all dangerous. They all could have a night. They all could have they're all capable of a 2-point night. And as you mentioned, in a low scoring game, which this will likely be low scoring and tight, a 2-point night is a massive night for your team. That's huge.
Yeah. And we're talking one game, one goal, one shot. That's
it.
In this game, very likely will be the difference. It's hard to bet against this Canadian group of forwards and their ability to create that, as evidenced by the quarterfinal and semifinal.
Absolutely. And it really could come down to special teams, as it usually can, not always, and I think that's where Canada has the edge, Frank. Their power play is more dangerous. It just is.
I'd like to fight you on that because the U.S. penalty kill has been perfect to this point. I mean, you look at these numbers and 7 for 16 is special. But so is not giving up a goal on the PK, which the U.S. has done. And granted, they faced a couple good teams here of late, but it hasn't perhaps been as much talent thrown at them as Canada has faced. But Canada has given up a couple power play goals against. And maybe in a tight game, it does come down to discipline in the sense that, hey, there have been some stupid penalties on both sides. Sam Bennett running the goalie over, throwing Nico Mikkola into the goalie, not smart. The U.S. and their parade to the penalty box, Charlie McAvoy had a couple in the semifinal on Friday, just not necessary. You have to be able to reel that in because 7 for 16, there's a real good chance that you're getting caught and paying the price.
It will be interesting to see. Obviously, I think, Tom Wilson, Sam Bennett are going to go hunting early for a big, bruising, violent hit. And well, I was thinking even Charlie McAvoy. He's their number one hunter just because he's such a great skater, right? The Kachuk, sometimes they're not elite skaters, in terms of lining guys up, but obviously Brady will finish every check. But Charlie's the one, as a defenseman, he will, that thundering hit on McDavid in Montreal last year was a seismic moment for the team. And I love that sound on the ice when they had Brady Kachuk mic'd up. I'm following you, Charles. I'm following you, Charles. Like that. He provides that factor for Team USA that, he welcomes that violent collision. You go back to Scott Stevens and those hard-hitting defensemen, and he has that in his game. He's a little more clinical. He doesn't do it all the time, and he's such a great skater. He makes great contact on these checks because he is such an elite skater, and I think he's going to look for that hit early as well, Frank. Maybe on Celebrini
Yeah,
too. Maybe that's the guy they're going to try to mark early.
because he's young and to see how he handles it.
Just because, and and Celebrini took a huge hit in his one Frozen Four with the BU Terriers against Denver. He took a colossal hit in the neutral zone early on because he's so amped up. He wants to, obviously, he loves the moment. He relishes the moment. He's won championships growing up, and so he's going to be flying. So I think you just want to use that other team's adrenaline and their speed, just like a hard fastball. Just make contact to some of this, and maybe you can kind of set the tone for your team and just put a little bit of doubt in the other team. That's what I love about the Olympics is you're allowed to hit the star players. There's none of this NHL regular season. If you hit the guy, we have to fight. No, they can be hit. And so I think this is going to be a very physical game, and I think the Americans are going to try to establish that early.
Yeah, that's why they were joking today. Connor McDavid mentioned after practice that they were trying to come up with names or trying to think about how much that one line has been fined collectively. Tom Wilson, Brad Marchand, and Sam Bennett. And someone looked it up. The answer is actually collectively $3 million they've donated to the NHLPA Player Assistance Fund. So it's a lot of money and a lot of carnage. And John Cooper mentioned on Friday that sometimes it's not about productivity. Sometimes it's about intimidation. Sometimes it's about sending a message. And sometimes it's about setting up the momentum for the next line with your high skilled, high flying players to come in and take advantage of that momentum that you've set.
Is the Players Assistance Fund a licensed charity? And so therefore, are their fines tax deductible?
I would. Well, they're not tax deductible because I think they're income that hasn't been earned. I don't know,
because it comes out of your unless you get paid first in your paycheck, then they take it out and give it to the assistant, and maybe you can deduct it. I think find that out for me. Talk to an agent. I want that. We'll answer that tomorrow. First question on the show after the gold medal game. Frank, are fines tax deductible? I want to know. It all comes back to taxes.
Look, I'm in Italy. We don't talk about taxes.
True. Moving on. Okay. How can we slow down? And I'm talking about Team USA. I'm not on the team. How can they slow down Connor McDavid? Is there tactically, is it a line matchup? Is it a deep pair matchup? What's the way to funnel? Or are they going to go, they're playing their game. They're going straight ahead. They'll deal with him in transition. We like our defensemen. We can veer. We can move them. And we can shade him to an area. What's the tactic? How would we slow down Connor McDavid?
It's the $500 million question. Because, and by the way, that's the total number of player salaries in this Olympics. How do you slow down Connor McDavid? I mean, this is the best hockey that I think anyone has ever played, period, in these Olympics. You see that he set the new Olympic record for points in a single tournament. Macklin Celebrini is unbelievable. And what he's done here has been nothing short of magical at his age, at any age. But Macklin Celebrini doesn't have the success that he does without Connor McDavid flying. He's gone anywhere that he wants on the ice. He really has. He's gone through guys. He's gone around guys. Even when they're trying to set up the seaweed approach, which is a Team Canada phrase of trying to have to wade through that to get to the net, he's through it and gone. And so if they can't find a way to slow him down and really make his life difficult, they're going to be in for a long day. That's just the truth, because he's been so impactful and has played so many minutes that anytime he's over the boards, he's an absolute automatic threat.
Absolutely. It's been thrilling to watch, and there's never been anyone like him to play with that speed and that skill. And what's always underappreciated of him, Frank, is his hockey sense and his unbelievable radar to make these passes. Because of his speed and skill, usually it's the slow guy. People talk about how smart they are, their hockey sense, whether it's Mark Stone or someone like that. His smarts and hockey sense is as elite as anybody on top of all that speed.
Well, just look at the chances that he's created so far in these Olympics. And these numbers are
Mm,
courtesy of Jay Fresh on social media. And I thought were so interesting. I mean, really, like you see 11.6, this is per game. He's generating off of his own stick 11.6 scoring chances per game. Nathan McKinnon, second on the team. These other guys are out of the tournament. Second on the team at 7.6. You have to go way further down the list in the top 10 to find any American players. If you
hmm
think that one player can generate 12 scoring chances per game, I mean, some games don't see 12 scoring chances total. So it's
hmm
just an insight into how next level he's been above everyone else. Also interesting that his teammate Leon Draisaitl is right next
Yeah.
to him. But it speaks to the impact that he's had on this overall tournament. And this is a guy looking for that signature moment who hasn't won anything. This feeling or notion that Connor McDavid's not going to let this chance slip through his fingers after being so close on a team stage before. Again, it makes it very difficult to pick against Canada.
Right. And again, part of this is because those guys play a lot. Draisaitl had to play a lot because of the lack of German depth. McDavid's played a lot because they trailed, and he's been pumped out there 25 minutes. The Americans haven't, had that line. They have more depth, so they're not going to. It's going to be spread out a little bit more, and that looks like an Edmonton Oiler full screen almost. We should be the best team, right? We have the two best players, don't we? Look at that. But again, this does speak of a lack of depth sometimes, and that's what you need. And that's what Edmonton is looking for. And we'll see if they have enough this year to get back to where they are. But any championship is won. I think it was Keith Jones told me once, you don't win with good goaltending, you win with great goaltending. And tomorrow, you're not going to win with good goaltending, Frank, because both these teams are going to get elite chances from elite marksmen. Nathan McKinnon is going to have grade A opportunities. Austin Matthews is going to have grade A opportunities. Matt Boldy, whoever you're talking about, they're going to Macklin celebrate. They're going to get their chances. They're going to get them. Which of these men are you betting a paycheck on plays better tomorrow? Not even so much winning, but who's going to have the better save percentage tomorrow? Because in the end, that's probably likely going to be the winner. Because I think the shots on goal, Frank, are going to be somewhat even. One team might have maybe a 6 or 7 game if things go their way. They have one extra power play, whatever. But I think the shots on goal are going to be similar. So I really do believe it comes down to most saves wins.
Yes, I think a fair statement for sure. Binnington's save percentage is a bit lower than Hellebuck, in part because he's seen like 20 fewer shots than Hellebuck.
Right.
So that does factor in. He does have the one flawless shutout. I mean, I'm Hellebuck all day here. Easy for me to draw a line in the sand. Binnington has been a big game goalie. He's shown up when it matters most, and he made some. They don't get to this stage. They don't get to the gold medal game without Jordan Binnington making the saves that he did on Czechia late in the third period in overtime. It just doesn't happen. He was nails. But Connor Hellebuck has been arguably the better goalie in the tournament and definitely has the hardware and accolades and pedigree to prove it. This is the reigning Hart and Vezina Trophy winner in the NHL. He's going up against the guy who's been the worst goalie in the NHL this season so far.
Yeah,
Olympics
it's
not
unbelievable.
This is not a hard decision.
And that being said, I think it is really interesting. I don't think that Canadian players, not sure about the coaching staff or I think he's not like he's not a problem to them. I don't think they think about Binnington and like, do we have now? If he lets a couple greaseball ones in tomorrow early, maybe they might. But so because I think a lot of times teams use average goaltending, or whether it's Edmonton the last 2 years with Skinner and Pickard, especially during the course of a long regular season when it seemed to be a roller coaster. Can our guy make saves? You've heard that from Edmonton, especially this year. We need a goalie to make some saves. They've said the coaches said it, the players have said it over the last couple of years. But for Binnington, they don't seem to look at him that way. And I guess maybe it's the Cup Championship, maybe it's the Four Nations coming through in Boston. But so I don't think, where I think a team can use it as a negative and a crutch, and it hurts them. I don't think it hurts Canada in terms of like the mental side of things as they play in front of him. I don't think they think about him.
Well, because if you had the firepower that they do, you wouldn't spend a lot of time thinking about it either. You're saying we don't need you to be a Vezina Trophy winner. You don't have to be Ken Dryden, but
Right.
you have to just give us a chance.
Yeah. Don't
Just
give up
give
more
us
than
a
2.
chance to win.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I
We'll
think
get you
he's
3.
capable of doing that. But I'm saying if you had to pick a goalie to make the save late in the game to win the game, I'm coupling Connor Hellebuck with the U.S. defense and how much they've pushed everyone out to the perimeter. When you look at the shot charts, that they've done a master class or conducted a master class in that I think that's going to give them the best opportunity to win. It's, can you keep the guys to perimeter? Yes. But when they break through, because inevitably they will, and this was Sweden's shots in the quarterfinal against the US. I mean, look at all those shots from the point and look how far out almost all these were, periods 1, 2, and 3. Not all of these hit the net, but it just goes to show you that over the course of a game, the home plate area has barely been scraped or touched over the last 2 games for the Team USA defense. And as a result, when you create a good environment, it makes the goalie's job and life easier.
Exactly. When you have the defensive core that we touched on earlier in the show that can gap up, that can skate that well, then the forwards know I can forecheck really hard because I know these guys are kind of just right behind me. And then when you have centers like Matthews, when he wants to play defense, is a great defensive player with his reach and his hand strength. Jack Eichel, who might be the best two-way center in hockey right now, and then Dylan Larkin as your third line center. You're coming wave after wave of, like you said, just 5-person amoeba that is just connected and around the ice. And and we go back to the seaweed with amoebas and seaweed. It's amoeba and seaweed. So it's tough. And so, and that's what, like you said. So in the end, Connor Hellebuck should just be, he's the punctuation. He's not even, Dominic Hasek, Buffalo, who began the sentence for the Sabres when they almost won the cup. He's just the punctuation. So just play your game like he has been. And again, I really do believe, Frank, it might be 4-3. I think it's 4-3, 3-2 final either way. But I believe if you only give up 2 goals, and if you're Hellebuck, you got to feel pretty good about that. They might get a couple by me, but I'm not giving them more than 2. I got to think Team USA wins.
I'm with you. I think if they're only giving up 2, they're winning the game.
How about X factors? Sometimes people go to X factors and they pick like maybe a 4th line guy or a second pair D. But in a game like this, Frank, your X factors have to be talent. They have to be guys with skill who produce points and are offensive difference makers. Because that's what it comes down to is one shot. Who's going to? McDavid got it in overtime last year in Boston. He was left all alone in front of the net, 15 feet. Connor Hellebuck had no chance. But it's going to come from a guy who can do some magic in a big situation. Start with your X factors. Who do you like? One on each team.
Yeah, so I think about X factors in a slightly different way, or perhaps I tried to channel the energy into this, which is if this guy has a good day, this team's gonna win.
Okay.
And for me, that's Jack Hughes.
Mm.
Jack Hughes has almost in some ways had this coming out party here at the Olympics where he really struggled at 4 Nations, and there's this question that was surrounding him and his game. Can he play the wing and be productive? Is he still one of the game's top players? Where's he at in his career? Can he stay healthy? Can he deal with playing in traffic and in big physical games? And what about raising your level in these big moments? And he has taken on a different role than he's used to. And we talked about this the other day that he said, quote, I want to be a spark plug for this team. And he played on the 4th line, has gotten moved up to the 3rd, and at varying, or I should say every turn since, he's been really good. So Jack Hughes is my guy on the U.S. And on the Canadian side, I'm going with Mitch Marner, another guy who has scored massive goals for Team Canada, including the OT winner earlier in the quarterfinal. And then previously last year in 4 Nations, a massive moment for him as well. So he's struggled in really big games to be productive over the course of his playoff career. This is the biggest of them all. This is the biggest game of his life. Canada, if Sidney Crosby doesn't play, or even if he does and is not close to 100% and making as big of an impact, how can Mitch Marner impact the game? Because if Mitch Marner does, Canada's going to be really difficult to beat with the depth that they have.
Right. And that's been Marner's issue in the postseason is scoring goals. And even in this Olympics, he has just the one. That's his. So that's a 20 goal pace throughout an 80 game season, and or even less than that. And that's his issue. But I love the guy. He's magical. He's smart, and now he's starting to feel comfortable with the Four Nations goal, and now this overtime goal. Almost had another one the last game as well with that beautiful move against Czechia. That's a gorgeous move he had. So, and like you said, Jack Hughes is the better goal scorer. He's shown it in his NHL career that he can pop in 40 if he needs to. And yeah, I've always believed in Jack Hughes. He's got a Hollywood smile. He's got charisma. I know a lot of the old time NHL guys or even recently retired NHL guys aren't a big fan. They think he's kind of punkish, think he's kind of standoffish. But I've always liked his style and his confidence, and believe that that charisma can help his team. And I just think he loves Frank playing with his brother. I think the bond those boys have is special. It's a lot like the Kachuk. I think it was Michael Russo wrote that great piece in The Athletic about the Hughes and the Kachucks and hanging out, Quinn hanging out with Keith and of course Jack and they're in Michigan and they train this summer and I think he's very comfortable on this team. And for whatever reason, New Jersey, he probably feels a lot of pressure to be the main guy because he doesn't have a lot of help. This team, he can just thrive. And he's been fun to watch. My X factors, again, I'm also going with two. Those two guys are going to the Hall of Fame, and my two guys are going to the Hall of Fame as well. And that's Austin Matthews and Cale Makar. I just think one of these guys is going to have a 2-point game, maybe a 3-point game, and lead their team to a gold medal. Makar, certainly with the Conn Smythe Stanley Cup year that he had, he's won a Norris Trophy. I think this year is going to be close. I actually think moments like this can actually help Norris. I know they're not supposed to, but I think if he has a big gold medal game, it will help him get votes in the NHL for the Norris Trophy. And Austin Matthews, overall 5 games, 3 goals, that's pretty good. But it's time for this amazingly talented player, the greatest American USA-born goal scorer of all time. Brett Hull certainly chose to play with America when he didn't make an early Canadian team, and he's certainly number 1 right now, and that would be amazing if he could ever catch. But I do think Austin Matthews will be the first USA-born player and born in California with 700 goals. I think he's on his way to an unbelievable career, and this would be a great moment for him, Frank, to have. This would be the biggest moment of his career if he goes out and gets 2 goals and Team USA wins the gold medal. It'll top everything so far to date.
For anyone on the U.S. if they were able to accomplish that. I mean, with all due respect to the Stanley Cups that Matthew Tkachuk has won, this is another level for all the reasons that we've talked about. And I hate to break it to you, but the 2026 Norris Trophy winner plays on Team USA, and his name is not Quinn Hughes.
No. Hey, Zach got my vote last year for. I went second. I had him second, but he is the favorite right now for sure. What a massive talent! It'd be great, and he's actually a guy I'm looking forward to seeing tomorrow. Hope he has a big moment, a big game, because he helped them win the World Championship. He brought the Johnny Gaudreau sweater out with a team picture when they won the World Championships last year. Great self-awareness. He's really grown as a leader and a person, and so he's going to be a dad as well. So that's all awesome. And meanwhile, it kind of takes us into who needs a new narrative. Who are some of the people that a big game just will change? It's amazing. 1-2 hour hockey game can change the perception of so many if this lineup of fellas has a day.
And it's a great question because they all kind of are equally searching for it. And we've talked about the U.S. narrative. And you just mentioned Austin Matthews and Connor Hellebuck with his playoff failures. But what about Connor McDavid? I mean, falling short in back-to-back Stanley Cup finals. You mentioned this notion that he hasn't had a signature moment in his professional career. I mean, you can collect all the individual accolades you want, but in the end, rightly or wrongly, you'll be judged based on your success at the team level and when it matters most. I mean, so disappointing to me to watch social media and see him wearing the C for Canada instead of Sidney Crosby, saying he's just keeping it warm. And Canadian fans are tweeting, we're never going to win with Mick Loser. He's never won anything. And at some point he will. It's an inevitability. It's not an if, it's a when and where. And it may just be on Sunday to kick that off at the Olympics with Canada. And so I think the guy who needs it the most, as much as USA Hockey desperately is seeking that win, the signature win themselves, you can win the women's game or at World Juniors or at under 17s or even finally the Worlds, for God's sake. It doesn't matter until you actually win. But to me, the guy who needs it the most is Austin Matthews. His career will change forever. The pressure that he feels in the playoffs will feel smaller. His teams will have more success as a result. And this guy that does find a way to keep everything for the most part really chill. He was, again, no shock, pretty chill on Saturday, meeting us after practice and talking. But he also needs to throw out the notion that he's not a big game player and that his teams can't win in the moment when it matters most. Game sevens on routine and on regular for the Toronto Maple Leafs.
And that's why, Frank, I think he needs to go out and deliver a big, thunderous body check early to lead this team, to show his team he's wearing the C. He's physically able. He's a big boy. He's thick. He's a great athlete. Probably could have played Major League Baseball if he stuck with baseball. Like, this is an elite athlete, not just a hockey player. And you might not be able to score a goal in a tight 2-1. A game could be 2-1. It could be 1-0. I mean, literally. But you can do those things. That can get your team. That can help your team. It can say, "Whoa, if Austin's doing this," not that they need that because they've been ferociously going. Jack Eichel's his own man. He's a Stanley Cup champion. Matthew Tkachuk, 2 cups. He's his own man. But I think Austin Matthews can not only write a new narrative by winning, obviously, like we said, but even doing things like that, blocking shots and delivering big body checks and that type of game that shows you that, hey, I will do anything to win. And that's what people aren't convinced of. Let's be frank, that people aren't convinced he would do that, right? He'd block a shot with his face, that he would do that for a win, as opposed to doing what I'm supposed to do, what I'm really paid to do, is score goals. But yeah, I like all three. And why do you have USA Hockey there as well? What could help them in this situation?
Well, just this notion that you get to the big stage and you lose, or that you're not even in the hunt. So you can't really be taken seriously until you do it. And one 3-game tournament at the World Cup of Hockey in 1996 isn't it. I mean, we've had, again, 30 years of best on best competition since then that they haven't won. So it's no longer nice to get here. Before, in 2010, everyone was super proud, silver medal, look how amazing that is. You can take that silver medal on Sunday if they lose and throw it right in the garbage. And I'm totally serious when I say that, because there's only one medal that matters, and that's winning gold for the US. And short of that, I don't want to say that this was a failure, but to get through and be 5-0 through a relatively easy group stage, you beat Sweden, that's an accomplishment. In the quarters, not really much to beat Slovakia, and the one test you have, you fail. This team has had a full calendar year to think about losing to Canada in the Four Nations, and they've got to come through. No excuses. Enough is enough. You're just as good. Have to go out there and do it.
Agree. It's a massive fail if they don't get it done. They've talked about it. They've talked the talk, which is great, and we love it. And they're all very likable. Both these teams, very likable young men and older men in some situations. But yes, I agree. It is time for them to deliver. And I think they have it doesn't mean it's going to happen. The fluky things happen in hockey, but I do think they'll play well. There may be one or two performances, and if the goalie is good, I do think they will play well, and they will do their part, and then we'll see where the chips fall. Much like the Four Nations, they were right there, but I think this time it's a little bit different. So in the end, I guess this is prediction time, and that's probably was a kind of a tease to my prediction, just in terms of probability. And again, if it's a 7-game series, I'm definitely confidently taking Team USA. One game, we know anything can happen. You can have a bad night. You wake up, you don't have your legs. It happens sometimes in sports. But collectively, I like their attitude, Frank. I like the momentum they have. They seem to be getting better. The goaltender looks good. The coaching staff seems settled. I want my boy Torch to get one too. I work with him now at ESPN. I like his demeanor when they score. Like, it's so refreshing to see him just be a different kind of a sage back there and not that same Torch that we see sometimes getting his own way or maybe his team's way. But I really do believe Team USA is going to get it done. Like I said, I think it's going to be it could be 1-0, 2-1, 3-2. It's pick a score, but I do think it's going to be a low scoring tight game. I think they're going to find a way to get it done. It's going to be an amazing moment in USA hockey history when that buzzer sounds.
Man, I've tried so many different ways to talk myself into why Team Canada should win. The firepower, the McDavid factor, the Crosby inspirational play, the fact that the entire country is watching at home. Bars are opening at 6 a.m. and it's just different there. But I do agree that this moment for the U.S., had they gotten here and Canada not made it to the gold medal final, it would have always came with an asterisk. It would have been, yeah,
No
you
doubt.
won Olympic gold, but you didn't have to play Canada. And now that they have them right in their sights and finally in front of them, that's what makes Sunday, I mean, it's thrilling for so many different reasons, but that's why the U.S. is even more motivated. It's the 800-pound gorilla is now sitting there and has invited you into their dojo to scrap.
Mm-hmm.
And the U.S. has to find a way to come out on the other end of that. And I think for the Connor Hellebuck reason, for as well as their defense has played, and because Canada is missing Sidney Crosby, or could potentially be missing Sidney Crosby, in addition to the addition of Quinn Hughes on their blue line that they didn't have last time around, this feels different. This feels like a different U.S. team that's peaking at the right time. And they had a great energy about them today. Their mood was essentially, what's cooler than this? We get to play for a gold medal with a huge chunk of our country watching back home. And this means everything to us. Let's go out there and take it. And so Canada just has a different demeanor. We expect to win. They're sort of like robots. This is our game. This is what we do. And the U.S., they just had a freedom about them today that I think is infectious.
Yeah, the vibes are good right now. Again, but in a one-game situation, I do believe it might be a coin flip. It might be 51-49. I might give the USA a slight favorite, but again, in the end, it's going to be a 50-50 coin flip game, and so many things can happen. McDavid could go crazy.
He said everyone likes adversity until they're in it, and then they realize that it sucks.
Yeah, I never wanted my team to be a close game. I didn't like that. I want them to be up big. I like watching blowouts. It's much less stressful when you watch your team up.
Mm-hmm, no doubt.
Let's ask the insider, Frank Saravalli, live from Milan, Italy. Who can join the Triple Gold Club?
So there's 30 members of the Triple Gold Club, which was established by the International Ice Hockey Federation a few years ago to acknowledge the distinguished gentlemen who have won a Stanley Cup, an Olympic gold medal, and a world championship, the three sort of pinnacles of the sport. Sidney Crosby, already a member. He's one of the 30. Obviously, there haven't really been many new entrants to this group. The last one was in 2022, a Finn, after they won the Olympics last time around without NHL players in it. But it's mostly been about 10, 12 years now since we've had new additions to the Triple Gold Club. And these five guys right here, Nathan MacKinnon, Sam Reinhart, Brad Marchand, Mark Stone, and Darcy Kemper, can all join the Triple Gold Club. Others have been close. Drew Doughty, for instance, he's won the Stanley Cup, of course, but World Championships, the one time he went, they got a silver. You have to kind of miss the playoffs in the NHL to be able to play in the Worlds, which is a distinction no one really wants. But nonetheless, pretty elite company to join just 30 other players on planet Earth who have ever played hockey to have won all three.
Very, very cool. Hashtag hockey time, carrying on the Gaudreau legacy. We mentioned it earlier in the program, what Zach Werenski did last year during those World Championships when they had Gaudreau's sweater in the room. Then he brought it out for the championship celebration photo, and there it is again, Frank.
Yeah, and that's Johnny Gaudreau's sweater in the Team USA locker room, and it's been amazing to see. They talked about him again on Saturday, and just how so many of those guys on this team were close with him, had come through the US development program and had spent so much time around him. There's a bond there that will obviously never be broken, but it's been amazing to see the Gaudreaus actually on site in Milan and at the games. So it's not just the jersey, it's his family is at the games as well. And just a nice touch and special wrinkle to this gold medal game. You would think Johnny Gaudreau would be on this team and playing in this tournament. And the fact that he isn't, it leaves a hole for everyone. But amazing to see that they're, still talking about him, and of course always will.
Yeah, I mean, I was lucky enough covering college hockey to be there, when he was 18 years old, right through the NHL, and he was just the sweetest kid. Always liked Johnny, always enjoyed the chats, with the college hockey bond that I have with a third of the league who play college hockey, 30% of the NHL played college hockey. So those guys, I always say, if you're age 30, I started young as a dad, and if you're age 33 or younger, I consider all them. I have two boys myself. I consider all NHL players 33 and younger my third sons. I root for them. I want them to do well. I want them to have great moments, and I root for them to get better as men. Like I said, I watch them grow up from the time they arrive in college until they're now 30 years old. And so you mentioned that, and that's the thing you mentioned, even going back to the Triple Gold Club and talking about McKinnon and talking about McDavid and Matthews not having kind of a hole in their resume. Unfortunately for them, this drought of best on best was during the start of their careers, right? So they get kind of a raw deal. Now they can make up for it now, as every 2 years we're going to have significant best on best, which is awesome. So they're going to have another good run here, and then all these players entering the league now. Macklin Celebrini, just think how many Olympic games he's going to go to now, right? How many World Cup games, whatever they decide to officially call, and if they keep the same name going forward. So good for them and good for that. But yeah, Johnny Gaudreau is just, it's great how they've carried on his legacy, really for the family and for Meredith and mom and dad and his, sisters. It's just, it still hurts. It's still amazing what a terrible, sad, tragic story that was. This one, they're all obviously sad and tragic, but this one was for some reason just so visceral that those two boys, he and his brother, were taken away like that. And a great job by USA Hockey to remember. It's important to remember those. It just shows a great respect for life now. That we remember those who have passed. It just shows, because every day matters. Every day is treasured, and we value everyone here today. Well, all right, on to the last word of this edition of Frankly Hockey on the Victory Plus app. Thanks for watching live on X, by the way, as well. All right, Frank, do the right thing with the official assignments. Has that been done? Is it official yet? Do we know who's going to call the games tomorrow?
Not yet, and everyone's waiting. And we talked about this a little bit on yesterday's show.
Yes.
But I'm imploring the NHL, just purely from an optics standpoint. And these guys are all above reproach. All of them are unbelievable officials. Please put an American and a Canadian on the game so that we don't have to talk about this again. Because if Canada wins, or if there's a questionable call, and if it's two Canadians calling the game, which you clearly don't need to do as one of them is available and Chris Rooney being there, that just from an optics standpoint, the NHL needs to move away from putting themselves in these positions, which they did 1 year ago at Four Nations, putting two Canadians on it. When you have someone available of high quality like Chris Rooney is, do the right thing. Make it easy. In FIFA and in other sports, you'd never in a million years in a US-Canadian match in FIFA see an American and a Canadian even on the pitch to call the game. It would be someone from New Zealand and England or wherever else. The league and the players decided that they wanted these meaningful games to be called by NHL officials, and rightfully so, because these are NHL players duking it out on the biggest stage, the pinnacle of sport. With that, make it easier on everyone so that we can all sleep soundly at night knowing that no one got screwed. Please put a US and a Canadian official on this game.
Frank's plea. But as you know, Frank, the old NHL offices has a little contrarian DNA to their mix. If they hear that, "Oh, well, you know what? I was thinking about that, but not now. Give me 2 Canadian referees.
Well,
I'm not gonna let Frank bully me around."
it's not about that. It's because they say, or what their response would be is, Frank, you just said it yourself. These are just optics. Do you really
We want the
believe that
best.
our officials would
Yeah,
be
yeah.
compromised? And no, I don't. But no one, when you, at a certain point, perception becomes reality. And when you have opportunities to even it out, because you can, I mean, if Chris Rooney's good enough to work a semifinal game, he's good enough to work a final game. So if you have the opportunity to do it for optics sake, and you don't, and you repeatedly don't, it means that you don't care, and or it means that, well, you want to set someone up to do something else.
And there it is. February the 21st, 2026. Another Frankly Hockey in the books. By the way, happy birthday, Devon Taves. He turned 32 today, Frank, and tomorrow he will play for a gold medal. And former Oiler Ryan Smith, the big 5-0. Happy birthday, Ryan. Happy birthday, Devon Taves. One more reminder. Again, the gold medal game is tomorrow, 8 is it 8:15? Is that the 8:10 a.m. Eastern time. We'll be on. There it is, right there. The 8:10 Eastern time. The bronze medal game, Slovakia and Finland. I think the Slovaks might be the team. I think they're both. Once the puck drops, they're going to want to win that medal. It'd be significant enough for both countries, especially Slovakia, Frank. I think they're going to go after this one. This would feel good for them to get a bronze medal at the Olympics. I know for US and Canada, it's gold or bust for them for sure. They'll use the silver as a coaster, or they might throw it in their kids' room, let them play with it. But the Slovaks, I think it'd be a big moment for them.
It would, but I think they're in one and up against it, against the Finland team that's going to overwhelm them and outplay them for significant stretches. As spunky as
Yep.
Slovakia has been, they're also now trying to go to Samuel Halavi. Part of the reason why they pulled him down 4-0 is not because they were disappointed in him, but because they wanted him to start to get rest for this really quick turn in a back-to-back. They were playing 9:10 last night. It's 2:10 or 2:40. 8:40 local time. So less than 24 hours later. That's a quick turn for Slovakia. Finland had a little bit more time to gear up, and I think Slovakia is in one for this bronze.
All right. Yeah, the Finns will either be empty after a draining game against Canada, a disappointing game they probably really should have won, or they'll take out all their frustrations out on Slovakia and, like you said, overwhelm and go home at least with a medal. So again, there's the gold medal game. We are on then again tomorrow at noon. We're giving you bonus weekend coverage, people. The sacrifice cannot be underestimated. What we're bringing you this weekend, Frank and I. It's the post gold medal game, Frankly Hockey edition. There it is, noon Eastern time, 9 Pacific. So after the game, please download the app Victory Plus. Again, we're on X all the time, and check us out for it'll be either way. The storylines are great. That's what makes this a great show to do, Frank. Again, the show will probably change. The rundown could go up and down depending on the game. If someone comes back and wins in overtime, we have a new hero. So looking forward to this show tomorrow at noon here on the Victory Plus app. Any parting words, Frank, before you hit dinner?
No place I'd rather be on planet Earth than in the arena and then talking to you after.
Awesome. I've never seen a gold medal game in person, so for you, I know it's life is short, and there's only so many of these to go around every 4 years. And once in a while, they're special like this. Do not take it for granted, folks. Watching on television and hopefully watching Frankly Hockey afterwards as we break down the game, what it means, legacy definitions, and all of that. We have numbers and stats and all kinds of stuff. So please join us after the gold medal game tomorrow here on the Victory Plus app, Frankly Hockey. For Frank, live in Italy, I'm John Butchergrass. We'll see you tomorrow at noon. Enjoy the game.